Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on Our News.
Living close to the shore could sometimes be a blessing and a curse. Residents of eastern Providence getting ready for the arrival of Hurricane Irma.
Shelters across the island prepare for Hurricane Irma.
Bahamians now taking the time to prepare for Hurricane Irma.
The Minister of National Security has several emergency meetings to address the rising numbers in crime.
Our News is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Vonique Tude. Topping news tonight, meteorologists continue to monitor the extremely dangerous Hurricane Irma, which the National Hurricane Center has described as one of the strongest storms recorded in the Atlantic. For the latest models, we go to meteorologist Jeff Simmons. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening, Bahamas. This is Jeffrey Simmons with your Our News Hurricane Irma update. Currently, Hurricane Irma is situated just to the east of the Leeward Islands and is now beginning to affect those islands. As we can see, it has a well-defined eye and a very broad area of hurricane force winds. Taking a look at what's going on with Irma, right now there's a hurricane watch in effect for the islands of the Southeast Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands. This includes the island of Inagua, Maguana, Acklins, Crooked Island, Long Key, Samana Key, and Ragged Island. We also have a hurricane alert out for the central Bahamas, which includes the islands of Long Island, Exuma, Cat Island, Rum Key, San Salvador, South Eleuthera, and South Andros. A hurricane watch means that those islands could begin to feel the effect of hurricane conditions within the next 48 hours, and a hurricane alert means that those islands in the central Bahamas can begin to feel the effect of Hurricane Irma within the next 60 hours. Right now, Hurricane Irma is situated at 17.1 degrees north and longitude 59.8 degrees west. That puts it about 130 miles just to the east of the Leeward Islands and moving toward the west at 15 miles per hour. Winds are up to 185 miles per hour. This makes Irma the strongest hurricane on record in the Atlantic Ocean. It's a very strong and a very powerful Category 5 hurricane, and it's moving gradually toward the west, and it will be expected to take on more of a west-northwesterly course, which will take it just to the north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, and heading into the Southeast Bahamas sometime around Thursday evening. So we're asking residents, especially those in the Southeast Bahamas, to take precaution, have all of your hurricane preparation in place, because this is a very powerful hurricane and it's headed your way. Those storms, the system will then move continue moving to the west and just pass into the south of Andros. Later on, as we go into the weekend past Sunday, there's a chance that all of the models are now indicating that Irma will take a more northerly course as it approaches the Florida Peninsula. So we're asking all residents, particularly those in the Southeast Bahamas, to take all the precaution, and residents throughout the Bahamas to continue to watch. So stay tuned to Our News for further updates.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Well, following a series of meetings, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis held a news conference at the office of the Prime Minister just minutes ago, where he made this announcement.
The government has taken the decision to institute an emergency evacuation to New Providence for the residents of Michael and Ragged Island. The emergency evacuation will begin early tomorrow morning and will be conducted by airlift. To underscore the threat posed by Hurricane Irma, I note that this is the largest evacuation in the history of the country. We are advising in the strongest possible terms that the residents of Michael and Ragged Island comply with the evacuation of their respective islands. Let me be very clear. Those who refuse to evacuate place themselves in potentially great danger from this monster hurricane. including from dangerously strong and high storm surge, which is one of the greatest threats from a hurricane. Emergency personnel and assistance will be unavailable during the immediate impact of the hurricane for those in Michael and Ragged Island who do not evacuate. Furthermore, rescue and recovery may take an extended period of time for those who did not evacuate. Let me again make the strongest plea possible to the residents of Michael and Ragged Island to evacuate their respective areas. Do not put your life and those of your loved ones at unnecessary risk. Do not be foolish and try to brave out this monster storm.
Tune into our news at 10 with Kyle Joaquin for more details of this evening's news conference. With the Prime Minister urging residents of the southern Bahamas to evacuate by 6 p.m. tomorrow, it's no doubt going to be a rough few days for those people living on those islands like Mayaguana, Inagua, Acklins, and Crooked Island. Kyle Joaquin tells us more.
Take no chances. It's a warning for all those living in the southern Bahamas as another massive hurricane prepares to do major damage to the islands less than 2 years after Joaquin left a trail of destruction. While islands like Crooked Island are under hurricane watch and in the path of a dangerous Category 5 storm, not everyone is willing to leave their home, like Michael Carroll on Crooked Island, who said people are now just starting to take the storm seriously.
Most persons are starting to put up storm shutters, and some are planning on evacuating tomorrow. Others are saying they're not leaving. They feel that they would be okay. But for the most part, we are maybe 60% ready.
We also spoke with Philippa Farquharson from Crooked Island. Her home is already battened up and she says she has food. She says all that's left to do now is wait.
Nothing really, just wait. We have a little food. We have a little water. And securing things like the passports and stuff like that. I packed them already.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of waiting.
And after a horrifying experience with Joaquin, she said the mood on the island is somber as a lot of people aren't interested in leaving their home either.
Only manage through God's grace and mercy. That's it. That's all I could say, through God's grace and mercy. Move went, and this one is supposed to be stronger than walking, so
yes.
We're playing. But I'm hoping that it's not. And that we just get banned with a little rain or something. But a little timid, but not frightened.
They're not frightened.
But I am timid. I don't want anything to happen.
Just before Hurricane Joaquin in 2015, Crooked Islanders were ordered to evacuate. But not everyone heeded that warning. But with Irma, now a Category 5 hurricane churning towards the islands of Mayaguana, Acklins, Inagua, and Cat Island, Michael MP Miriam Emanuel is urging her constituents to heed the warning and evacuate.
Your life is worth more than anything. Your life is irreplaceable. You can get your house back, etc. But your life right now is of great value and of great importance to me. So please, ma'am, please, sir, just do what you've been asked. I know you might say, well, I don't want no one to tell me leave my home, but please, I'm pleading with you as your member of parliament to follow due diligence.
After Joaquin, communication and much-needed deliveries to the island were basically cut off. With Irma expected to make a catastrophic impact, Emanuel said it's important that important services like mailboat deliveries be made ahead of the storm.
Persons are depending on their water, their food, and even the aftermath. So I'm appealing to those persons who are responsible for those 5 islands that I represent, those precious people. Please make sure that those services that they are looking forward for, their food, especially their water during this time, that you be there. And please make it as early as quick and possible as you can.
She said all shelters on the island have been readied and opened. In the meantime, this MP and Minister of the Gospel said she will pray.
As early as this morning, I got up and prayed, said a prayer for them, hoping and praying and trusting God that this too, that this storm will pass away for them.
Reporting for OUR News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And with the major storm barreling towards the Bahamas, officials are readying shelters across the country for what they expect will be an influx of residents fleeing their homes. The rush is also on for charitable organizations that will be assisting residents before and after the storm. Jasmine Brown visited several locations today and filed this report.
Here at the Hillview Seventh-day Adventist Church, preparations were well underway as workers prepped for the hundreds of people they expect to take shelter. As the music played, members of the Hillview Seventh-day Adventist Church worked feverishly to prepare the shelter, all while carrying out their usual Tuesday duties of preparing meals for the poor. Even with a dangerous hurricane looming, workers were upbeat. Church elder Sidney Sylvester says it's a scene that will play out again once Irma arrives and NEMA orders the shelter opened.
We're preparing the kitchen, we're preparing the laundry room and all of that, so that when the crowd come, after the crowd come and all that, and with the hurricane and all that, we'll be ready for them.
And what type of services or what you're going to offer to people who come here who want to shelter here during the storm?
Well, we make the church available, we make all the roundings here, and we will also have breakfast and lunch and dinner.
The church, which is the largest designated shelter on the island, is no stranger to hosting evacuees. 400 evacuees showed up at the church's doors ahead of Hurricane Matthew's passage last October, nearly double its capacity, according to Pastor C. Melvin Lewis.
We anticipate we probably will have that amount again this year. This hurricane, I noticed that people are preparing for it. So we probably will have that amount here again this year. When people come here, I know sometimes people come in a rush and they're not able to pack the food and all that. And so our folks just went out today to buy food to stock up for those who may come without food.
The Hillview Church is not the only designated shelter being prepared to take in residents who may need to evacuate their homes. The Salvation Army on Mackey Street was also in the early stages of preparation, according to Major Clarence Ingram.
First thing we do, of course, is to make sure that our generators are up and running, that our supply of fuel is where it needs to be, that we have a good supply of food on hand, that we have a roster of people to help out and things like that as the time goes along, that we have the necessary blankets and other equipment that we would need to make sure that people are reasonably accommodated as best we can under emergency circumstances.
That shelter can accommodate approximately 50 people, and there is another Salvation Army shelter in Grantstown that can hold an additional 50 people. Ingram says even if they surpass that number, they will not turn anyone away. According to the National Emergency Management Agency, there are 24 designated shelters in New Providence, 9 in Grand Bahama, and 94 on the Family Islands. Stationed at many of those centers will be workers from the Red Cross. Caroline Turnquest is the Director General for the Bahamas Red Cross Society. She says supplies were sent to the Family Islands months ago.
With regard to the Family Islands, we have pre-positioned supplies to them beginning the first week in July, and we have completed all of the Family Islands where we have member groups and leaders in those islands. Here at the Red Cross, we have been busy meeting with our disaster team during that period, and since the notice that the hurricane may very well come this way, we have put our team on notice.
For the complete list of shelters, visit NEMA's Facebook page or bahamas.gov.bs. Reporting for OUR News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
If you have travel plans this week, here's how you could be impacted. The Nassau Airport Development Company announced today that Lynden Pinling International Airport may close on Friday, with services resuming on Saturday evening, depending on Irma's aftermath. Meanwhile, grocery stores and water depots were once again inundated with customers as New Providence residents prepare for the potentially catastrophic storm. April Sands has that angle.
Well, the countdown is on as Hurricane Irma makes its way to our shores. And as you can see, Bahamians taking the storm pretty seriously. Traffic backed up from the east-west highway all the way to Abundant Life Road. Cars wrapped around the Chelsea's Choice outlet on Abundant Life Road today as New Providence residents stocked up on gallons of water. With dangerous Hurricane Irma churning towards the Bahamas, some customers hit the road as early as 5 a.m. this morning. telling Our News they weren't taking any chances. Manager of Operations Shannon Jennings says they're considering ways to accommodate the long lines of customers ahead of the storm.
But for right now, we are sticking with the hours, and the main reason is for that is because, we have a lot of empties out here right now, and we have to get the empties filled, for the next day. Okay. So customers who didn't get water today, they can come in tomorrow and get water again the next day.
In fact, Jennings estimated there are thousands of empty bottles that need to be refilled due to the high demand for drinking water.
This is a very huge storm. I would recommend no one underestimate this and take the best precautions. Right now is the time to actually take those precautions to put everything in place.
So far it wasn't really bad because I took a little shortcut and it's moving smoothly.
Local grocery stores also recording an uptick in customers who pack the aisles searching for basic essentials. This worker at Super Value says some shelves were so bare due to the increase in customers that they were forced to restock today.
The bread stand was actually empty, and the guy from Purity, he came down, he filled it up. 5 minutes later, gone again.
That was this morning?
That was this morning.
One shopper said this is their second trip to the grocery store.
A lot of times you make the mistake of getting cooking food, and last time the storm came, we was out for almost a month without power.
Oh, wow.
And even though you could cook, the stuff still is spoiled.
And to ensure you're ready for the storm, NEMA encourages residents to purchase water, canned goods, paper plates and cups, along with plastic utensils, a flashlight, battery-operated radio, toiletries, and a first aid kit. Reporting for Our News, I'm April Sands.
After taking a beating from Hurricane Matthew last year, residents of eastern New Providence appear to be watching and waiting to see just how much of a threat Irma will be. Kyle Joaquin visited the area today.
Take a look at how close these homes are to the shoreline here. Last year, during Hurricane Matthew, storm surges caused a lot of problems for these residents of eastern New Providence. But with another major storm coming, these residents aren't taking any chances. Having the sea as your neighbor isn't always a good thing. For those living near the shoreline in eastern New Providence, it could be a nightmare during hurricane season. In St. Andrews Estates, despite extensive flooding during Hurricane Matthew last year, storm preparation for Hurricane Irma is off to a sluggish start, with very few homes being battened up and basically no sandbags in sight. But if you move further north along Yamacraw Road, it's a different story.
Storms, it could be going east today, and in another 2 hours it could be coming back north. And so we got to take precautions. You have to use wisdom, and for what is happening now in the world, and what is happening with these storms, it ain't nothing to play with. Right. It's a serious stuff. Right. You have to be prepared.
Bishop Anthony Roker says while Irma may be a few days away, waiting till the last minute is not an option for him when it comes to securing this small plaza along Yamacraw Road.
Got to be wise and take precaution. Just last year, September, with Matthew, it teaches us a lot of things to be prepared.
And just up the road, Joan Trico has a team securing the windows of her condominium.
Yeah, Matthew was kind of scary. The wind was severe, and then especially my unit's on the south side. And but this one is a Category 5, and I don't think we should, take any chances right now. And we moved the vehicles to higher ground, but a lot of the big trees came down last time. It's only this one here we're worrying. I don't know why the government don't really trim them. Yeah. But that's, and it's quite dangerous with the wall and everything, because we just moved, right before the storm, we moved the big tree from here to save the wall.
And after taking a beating from Matthew last year, her neighbor, Daphne Wilkinson, didn't hire any help. She and her cousin getting it done on their own, putting plywood on their windows.
We always knew we lived in a hurricane zone. And so when it comes to living this close to the water, or even those persons who are living on the water, you have to take precautions. And then if you feel like you're not safe there, move away. The house is not important. You can't take it with you when you go.
If Wilkinson were to walk out her gate and look left, she's looking right at the sea, something she says could get a little scary during hurricane season. Leaving her home was an option for her. However, there is one problem.
We had plans to go to Bahama, but my husband said he's not leaving. One of those?
Yeah.
Right. He said he's not leaving, so I'm going to stay with him because I can't allow him to be here by himself.
And with just 2 days left to prepare, it's crunch time for not just those living in the east, but everyone living in Nassau. For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
And in other news, gunmen shot and robbed a man and a woman outside CIBC First Caribbean Bank on Madeira Street last night, killing the man and leaving the woman in critical condition. 2 suspects have been taken into custody. Police say it's just one of 3 shooting incidents last night that left 2 people dead and 3 people in hospital. The agonizing screams of a family in pain, a blood-soaked sidewalk, and a bullet-riddled window paint the picture of the tragic incident that unfolded outside CIBC First Caribbean on Madeira Street last night. Assistant Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernandez says a man and a woman were about to make a deposit shortly after 10 p.m. However, the money never made it to the bank.
When a silver-colored Honda vehicle pulled up, 2 men exit, both armed with handguns, fired shots, hitting both victims to the body. The male died here on scene. The female was later transported to PMH by way of ambulance, and she is listed in critical condition.
Police say the gunman escaped with the deposit bag. The victim's family members gathered on the scene as officers conducted preliminary investigations. Their cries grew louder as officers placed the man's body into the back of this van. But the bloodshed didn't end there. Minutes later, police received reports of a shooting incident on Croton Street in Pinewood Gardens.
An individual had just arrived home when a black-colored vehicle pulled up at his residence, and shots were fired from that vehicle. He was hit to the body.
That victim was rushed to hospital in critical condition, but later succumbed to his injuries. Gun violence also struck Fox Hill last night, where Fernandez says a man and a woman were shot on Abner Street.
Adult male and female were standing in the yard when a dark-colored vehicle pulled up. Shots were fired from that vehicle, resulting in both persons being shot.
Fernandez says the 2 victims were taken to hospital where they are listed in stable condition. As police investigate these latest incidents, the Assistant Commissioner made a familiar plea to the public.
All 3 of the matters are under active investigation at this time, and we are appealing to members of the public who would have been in those areas where the incidents occur with any information to please come forward to assist. Their police force remain focused, and we are on track, and we are following some significant leads in these matters.
And still to come on Our News, the acting commissioner comments on last night's shootings, and a little later, how you can report price gouging. So stay tuned.